On this episode, we ask which Kraken is the most indispensable, then we go south to Coachella Valley to check in on the Firebirds and Jani Nyman.
This show's been going south since the first day we started.
Coming up on Locked On Kraken.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm Zane Begg alongside Glenn Dreyfus. We are with Davy Jones Locker Room, and welcome to Locked On Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Glenn, we're in the Olympic break, and so this gives us a moment to take a step back and look at the Kraken in a more macro sense rather than being in the minutia of the day-to-day, game in, game out, preview, recap. We want to look at which players are the most indispensable. So we each chose a player. We don't know who that player is. I have a backup player in case we chose the same player.
Well, the idea came from there's a big name company, and maybe this is done at a lot of companies, but there's a big name company where they kind of play this mind game of everybody's in a lifeboat. And if you threw people out of the lifeboat, which employee would still be the last one left in the lifeboat? They would be the one most indispensable. And my indispensable Seattle Kraken is Joey Daccord. Daccord is my nominee for what he brings to the team and the franchise, both on and off the ice. Joey, as you know, is from a Boston suburb, and he likes to remind people he was drafted 199th overall in 2015 by the Ottawa Senators. Why does he like to remind people this? Because 199th was the exact same draft position as another Boston athlete, Tom Brady. And I know goaltenders take more time to develop than skaters, but by age 27 rather, by age 27, he played a grand total of 19 games with the Senators and with the Kraken. But in 23-24, he burst on the scene, played 50 games with a 2.46 goals against average, .916 save percentage. He's never looked back. And he has the one essential quality of great goaltenders. He makes saves he's not supposed to make. Of course, he's good positionally. How could he not be? With a dad who's a goaltending coach, he's got his own goaltending school. Stop It Goaltending. That's adorable, by the way. He's shown time and time again, has Daccord, the athleticism that allows him to wow the crowd and frustrate opposing shooters. He's mentally tough. And one more thing, he's one of the best stick-handling goalies in the league. Does that put him in hot water occasionally? Sure. But you live with that because Daccord is like a third defenseman, a key element of the Kraken breaking out of their own zone. Now, I'll tell you the off-ice reason he's indispensable, but first you can react and tell me your pick.
My pick is Jared McCann. And the reason why is not only has he been the team's leading scorer in each of their previous 4 seasons, but he really is the only elite or elite adjacent scorer they have. And that is one thing the Kraken need desperately. They are clinging on to Jared McCann's incredible scoring ability because he is driving so much. And in fact, I did some splits with and without him.
I was going to say the Kraken have struggled when he's been out injured.
They sure have. Without McCann, Seattle's expected goal differential is nearly 10 times worse without Jared McCann this year. On the power play, they are 22 28.2% with Jared McCann and 17.1% without. So that's a 5-point difference between the power play efficiency with and without. That is a massive, massive difference. They are better on the power play with him. They're better 5-on-5 with him significantly. They're better shorthanded with him significantly. Jared McCann is the driver of this team's offensive success. You'll note that when Jared McCann was out, it was like, oh no, what are we going to do? This offense looks terrible. The power play looks terrible. This team can't score. They can't generate offense. Now they're scoring. They're scoring goals. Whenever the Kraken go on the power play, you're like, yeah, let's go power play. Overall, Jared McCann transforms the entire texture of what the Kraken do, both offensively and defensively, but especially offensively. I think that as we saw when he was out, the numbers were stark. We saw it on the ice. The on-ice differential was stark. Jared McCann is the most indispensable Kraken in the year of our Lord 2026.
Are you listening, Toronto Maple Leafs? Boy, I'll bet the Leafs, if they had to do it over again, wouldn't have exposed McCann in the expansion draft. They acquired McCann from the Penguins just for the purpose of being able to keep Alex Kerfoot. And McCann has gone on to have a 40-goal season for the Kraken. As you say, he's been their top scorer every year there's been a Kraken, and the difference is noticeable because this is a team that has challenged scoring goals, and their one reliable go-to has been Jared McCann, and other teams know that, and McCann still puts up the numbers. And yeah, he's pretty indispensable. Maybe he'd be my second out of the boat. All right, now maintain why Joey is even more indispensable. And it's funny to say this about a guy who wears a mask to work, but in my mind, he's the face of the franchise. He's not afraid to wear his emotions on his sleeve. That doesn't mean he stews when he gets scored on. It means when the Kraken score an overtime goal, a lot of eyes, including ours at Climate Pledge Arena, turn to the Kraken crease to see Joey's mad dash to the celebration. And if he should bounce off the pile and fall down, he'll laugh about it with everybody else. He's personable, way too normal, actually, for the goalie union, articulate with the same enthusiasm for teammates and the game and for the fans. And who on the Kraken has more fun yeeting the salmon after a home win, or giving Bowie a bear hug, or dousing the Kraken first star with water as that player heads back out on the ice? Do I have a man crush on Joey Daccord? How could I not? He played his college hockey at Arizona State. He recorded the one and only shutout in the history of the Winter Classic, which shows, by the way, that our Joey is not intimidated by the biggest of stages. And I'll close with this. Did he have a mini slump in January? Yeah. But check out his save percentage in his last 4 starts before the Olympic break. All of them wins. 931, 935, 931, 926. He is a goalie you can win with, and I mean playoff series as well as regular season.
Those are elite numbers, not just good numbers. Joey has been playing at an elite level recently, as has Philip Grubauer. Also a very normal goalie. I don't know what's going on there. They're both seem like normal, well-adjusted people, which is really atypical for the position. So I don't know. Maybe the Kraken have a type and it's normal people.
I mean, the goalies union, if you look back its history, goalies are more flakes than a ski slope. I mean, they are not typically your well-adjusted folks, but in Grubauer and in Daccord, the Kraken have two really nice guys as well as good goaltenders.
And going back to Jared McCann, he is also someone who wears his emotions on his sleeve. He is so subject to how the Kraken are playing, and he does not hide his emotions. I remember it was either last year or 2 years ago, and the Kraken were on a really bad, long losing streak. After games at Climate Pledge, the media goes downstairs to the locker room and they bring out 2 or 3 players. We go to their locker, they answer some questions, and then we move on to the next player. And it's usually a couple minutes. And most of the time when you get there, the locker room is empty aside from maybe 1 or 2 players who are still getting dressed. But aside from that, it's often empty. And the players who are still there they're doing something, they're getting dressed, they're winding down. And I walk in and Jared McCann has his head in his hands. He's just sitting in his locker room. And the whole media availability, he's just sitting there. And we're like kind of like walking, like, do we acknowledge this? Like, this is weird. He was so devastated when the Kraken are winning. He's joyful, he's buoyant, he's bouncy, he's jovial. He is someone I thought would have been in contention for the captaincy were it not for Jordan Eberle. He is a leader in the locker room. He's talked about mentoring the young players. He and Joey Daccord are, I think, the 2 most outwardly emotional players on the team. And I don't think that is a coincidence that we have also then found them the most indispensable. Their on-ice production also being excellent. So,
Hey, a pair of guys who are both good at what they do and easy to like.
well, the Kraken may not be playing, but the Coachella Valley Firebirds still are, and we are going to check in on them down south and how their season is going. If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is. And when you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring, Indeed, is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job postings on other sites. Indeed sponsors jobs, puts your post at the top of the page, and helps you reach the right candidates faster. Instead of struggling to get your job post seen, Indeed sponsored jobs helps your listing stand out and reach quality candidates faster. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, doing the right way with Indeed. Thank you for making Locked On Kraken part of your daily listening routine. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. And if you haven't already, please go check out our new Everydayer Club. This gives you access to an ad-free audio feed for Locked On Kraken wherever you get your podcasts. And you also get an invite to the members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of this show. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer or tap the link in the show notes to learn more. Glenn, the Kraken aren't playing games, but the Coachella Valley Firebirds are. What is happening down south?
Well, a little bit of a primer. The AHL is a 32-team league with each of the teams attached to an NHL affiliate. And the Firebirds play in the 10-team Pacific Division. Right now, Coachella Valley sits 5th in the division with a record of 25, 15, and 5. Now, that's playoff position for 2 reasons. First, 7 teams out of the Pacific make the playoffs. Second, 23 of the 32 teams make the postseason, which is now 5 rounds compared to the NHL 4 rounds. However, the first round is best of 3, and the second and third rounds are best of 5. I'm just going to throw in the Coachella Valley Firebirds mascot Fuego, who is still angry that the St. Louis Cardinals threw him out of a moving van when they were down in the desert. I guess it's spring training, and he wonders why they abandoned him. We're just kidding, Fuego. We love you. Anyway, 5th in the Pacific is better than it sounds, because by points percentage, the Firebirds are 11th best in the 32-team league. Their calling card is offense. They've scored the 6th most goals. They're 20th in goals allowed. We know what a home ice advantage the Firebirds have at Acrisure Arena, but this season, oddly, they've actually had more success on the road. And their special teams, I'm going to use a technical term here, meh. The power play and penalty kill both ranked 17th, middle of the pack. To talk about individual players, and this is one that Kraken fans know well, Logan Morrison. Even though he hasn't played a full season in the AHL because he's been called up to the big club, he's still 3rd in the AHL in points with 46, and he's 5th in goals with 23. And remember the Furcus Circus? That's Jagger Furcus. He has 44 points. That's 7th in the league, including 17 goals. So he might be another future Kraken we're expecting and hoping. And one other notable, a defenseman, Tyler Jugnoth. Even as a blue liner, this defenseman is tied with Furcus for the assist lead on the Firebirds with 27. He's a 4th-round pick of the Kraken in 2022, so he may not be as familiar to everybody. Furcus and Jugnoth, I know this for a fact, are in Rockford, Illinois. How do I know this? Because Rockford, Illinois is the site of this year's AHL All-Star festivities, and they are All-Stars. Those festivities today and Wednesday.
Jagger Furcus, I will probably dedicate a segment to him at this point because he's an interesting player. The one thing that is his drawback is that he cannot put on weight. A few years ago, he came in at 151 pounds, and then he went and he worked on it in the offseason, and he came back the next year at 153 pounds. And then he came in the next year at 154 pounds. I think if he really works hard and really hits those protein shakes, he could get up to like 160 maybe someday.
Send that boy my way.
Right?
I know how to put on weight.
I know it's not as easy as just eat ice cream and pizza because you lose your speed, your explosiveness. But I have lost my faith in him really ever putting on the kind of weight to become a regular, consistent NHL player. When we've seen him in training camp or at rookie camp, he is so talented, but he is clearly just gets physically mauled. Every time he goes in the corner against NHL players, it is like watching a high school senior go up against an 8th grader. It's just like you kind of feel bad, and you're like, Timmy, please, no, it's okay.
That little playlet brought to you by Zane Bag.
Yeah, that's right. I'm pursuing a career as a screenwriter. One thing that I think Coachella Valley Firebirds fans may have anticipated was a lot more Ryan Winterton, who is, I don't think, coming back. I don't think Ryan Winterton is walking through that door again. It seemed like he was going to be kind of bouncing back and forth as a call-up, but now that we've seen him play this season, he is way too good for the AHL. He is a good, solid NHL player, and I think that has affected the Coachella Valley roster quality more than I think people were anticipating heading into this season.
Back down on the farm, the Firebirds had an all-Nordic goaltending tandem, Victor Osman of Sweden and Nikke Koko of Finland. And I'll explain why I say had. Koko's numbers, 322 goals against, 896 save percentage. Let's take a look at him, shall we? Here he is. Listen to this. In 13 shootout attempts against, he's only allowed 2 goals. But Koko has been out of action since mid-January and is listed as week to week. So he's not half of the duo right now. Osman's numbers, pretty good, by the way. 904 save percentage, 293 goals against. So with Koko out, up from Kansas City, Jack LaFontaine has been lights out. In 5 games, LaFontaine has 4 wins and 1 overtime loss. Because he's 28 years old, which is young to me, but not young to hockey players, he's not considered a prospect or really in the Kraken's plans. But even so, a 933 save percentage and 184 goals against at the AHL level so far is attention getting. And the Kraken's farm team back in action, as you said, Friday and Sunday against the Tucson Roadrunners, farm team of the Utah Mammoth. And let me close with this. A tip for fans who might want to see their Kraken prospects in action, but wish they weren't so far away. The Firebirds have 2 games scheduled against the Vancouver Canucks farm team in Abbotsford, BC. Rogers Forum, where the Abbotsford Canucks play right over the border, just 115 miles from Climate Pledge Arena. If you want to go, the Firebirds Canucks games are Friday, April 3rd and Saturday, April 4th.
One thing I also find interesting about the Coachella Valley Firebirds is that their D-core is very young. Their top 5 defensemen in terms of minutes are 21 years or younger. And Ville Järväinen is the old man at age 23. Hey, there's Ville Järväinen. Given the lack of defensive blue chip prospects in the Kraken system, having so many young defensemen hoping that one of these lottery tickets turns into something is a pretty smart move. Just keep throwing darts. Development in hockey is slow. It takes a long time, and you often don't know what you're getting with young hockey players. So keep taking shots, and hopefully a really good defenseman or 2 comes out of this.
Well, your point is very well taken. Rakoff here is another rookie. Price is a rookie defenseman. And my favorite defenseman, I don't know if he'll ever play in the NHL, but I love me some Ty Nelson. You want to talk about players who wear their emotions on their sleeve. Ty Nelson is a spark plug. He takes no prisoners. He's undersized for a defenseman, but he is like a fire plug. He is the Firebirds fire plug. He is stout, and it is hard not to be excited when you're around Ty Nelson, because he just makes you feel good. I'm rooting for Ty Nelson to get at least a cup of coffee with the Kraken someday, because I think he's the kind of player that every team needs.
One player that we have not mentioned yet is Jani Nyman, who has been tearing up the AHL, and the reason is because we wanted to take special time to talk about him specifically, coming up next on Locked On Kraken. Cold days, packed schedules, and big goals. That's winter. And when there's not a lot of time to cook, eating well can feel like another thing on the to-do list. That's where Factor comes in. Factor makes healthy eating easy with fully prepared meals designed by dietitians and crafted by chefs so you can eat well without the planning, prepping, or cooking. Factor meals are always fresh, never frozen, and ready in about 2 minutes with no refined sugars, no artificial sweeteners, and no refined seed oils. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 off and use code LockedOnNHL50 off to get 50% off and free breakfast for a year. Eat like a pro this month with Factor. New subscribers only, varies by plan, one free breakfast item per box for 1 year while subscription is active. Glenn, someone who deserves more than just a cup of coffee in the NHL, but is having a hard time making it into an NHL lineup is Jani Nyman. He has been destroying the AHL with that lethal shot, but he's not on the Kraken. Kind of a weird situation. What's going on?
Well, we should mention that these photos are taken by our ace photog, Jen Goldberg, and this is actually during play. You might think it was during warmups, but that's just how hot Jani Nyman has been for the Firebirds. It's no surprise he's lighting it up in the AHL. Last year, he scored 28 goals for the Firebirds in just 58 games. Remember former coach Dan Bilesma of the Kraken, who was the Coachella coach also, being blown away by Nyman's shot in last year's training camp. He called it an NHL shot. But Nyman was sent down just before New Year's because he wasn't a defense first Lane Lambert kind of player. Now, he did score in his first game back with Coachella, and he had a stretch in mid-January where he scored 2 goals in 3 straight games. He's on a current streak of goals in 4 of his last 5 games, all told 11 goals in 17 AHL game. And get this, a shooting percentage north of 26%. He does have things to work on. And one is he's 6'2", 212. Now, that means 2 things. He's a big body, so he's got the frame to be a pain in the corners and in front of the net. But getting that big body to skate fast isn't easy. So I hope down at Coachella, they're teaching him how to improve his skating and how to better take advantage of his frame in the offensive zone.
His skating is the thing that stands out to me aside from his shot. I will say, I think his skating has improved so much in the last 18 months. He had gone from, I don't know if he has the ability to skate at the NHL level, and I don't know if he'll ever get there because he was so far from acceptable as a skater. And then in a really short time, I think he's not quite NHL average, but I think he's approaching there. I know our friends are over at Emerald City Hockey. Dylan thought he was an NHL average skater, which I thought was maybe a little overstating, but I don't think it's far off. Also,
if only the Kraken had a power skating specialist as one of their coaches. Oh, wait.
Yeah, if
that's
only.
what Jessica Campbell is. So get Mr. Nyman with Ms. Campbell, have her work on his power skating because they need his shot. They need his goal scoring ability. Get Jani back up here.
Yeah. So the thing I think is preventing him from having a roster spot is specifically on the back check when he has to skate the length of the ice to try to defend someone and it just isn't there. He doesn't have the explosiveness to get up to speed. And so now he's a half step behind. And that's all you need in the NHL. The other thing that I think will serve him well is just experience and having more exposure to professional hockey. So 2 press conference moments. There was one early on with Coachella Valley where he exited the locker room. He saw the press scrum of about 20 people and he said, "No." And he went back in. Now, the day he made his NHL debut, it was a home game at Climate Pledge Arena against the Montreal Canadiens. And his parents were in attendance, and the camera kept panning to them. And Finnish people I associate with stoicism. His parents, especially his mother, was anything but stoic. Kraken down 4-2 in the third period. Jani Nyman, not only in his NHL debut, scores his first NHL goal. The Kraken come back. They force overtime. Brandon Montour scores 4 seconds in, the fastest overtime goal in the history of the NHL. And after the game, they brought him out, and he was really nervous. It was like a mixture of happiness and nervousness, and he's got all these people, and they're asking him questions, and he's clearly not comfortable. And I asked him, what was it like having his parents in the stands? And I didn't do it because I wanted to primarily know what it was like, because I assume it's going to be like, oh, it was great or whatever. I just wanted to put him at ease a little bit. And it was so cool to see him kind of melt, and his demeanor changed, and he kind of smiled, and it was such a human moment. And it was such a reminder that these are kids, Glenn. These are children who are playing professional hockey in front of thousands of people, or tens of thousands of people, or millions of people if you talk about television. And they're 20 years old, 21 years old. I was not able to manage my life at that age. And I was not playing a professional sport in front of millions of people.
You made a wonderful point, which is that Jani Nyman's 21 years old, right? And that being from Finland, he's still learning English. These are great things for fans to remember. Heck, I'm still learning English. Jani Nyman is so anxious to get back to the NHL that he actually keeps one foot perpetually over the boards, just waiting for the call up. So, Kraken, give him that call. Bring Jani back and let him score some goals and help you get to the playoffs.
So the question then becomes, where does he fit? And I think one of the reasons why he isn't on the Kraken roster, yes, there are concerns about his skating, but I think his skating is good enough. But there just isn't a lot of room on the roster. It's a very crowded roster right now in the bottom 6. We're having issues with where to fit in Jacob Melanson when everyone's healthy, or where to fit in Ben Myers where everyone's healthy. And now you have Jani Nyman. Where does he fit in? I do want to talk about this in a future episode, but I think that there might be room created on the roster by maybe trading a couple of guys who might not be on the team next year. And so the Kraken's roster construction decisions around the trade deadline, I think Jani Nyman is a factor here. I think if you can create space for Jani Nyman on your roster, your power play, which granted has already been very good, but your power play gets better because Nyman has the best shot on the team, or the second best shot after Jared McCann. It is not just an NHL shot. It is a borderline NHL elite shot. It is breathtaking.
Yes.
You just like, whoa. Like first time you see it in person, you're like, did that teleport? Like what happened? So there's value there, but there just isn't room for him on the roster right now. I think that his presence does allow the Kraken a little bit more flexibility if they want to move out a Jaden Schwartz or, well, I was going to say Jordan Eberle, but I don't want to put Kraken fans in a panic. So I didn't say Jordan Eberle. It just sounds like I did, but that was a dog barking.
Woof, woof, Eberle. Woof.
Right. Well, this episode is clearly for the dogs, so we're going to call it a day. Thank you for tuning it in to Locked On Kraken. We will be back tomorrow to talk more Kraken, more Olympics, and make sure that you subscribe and follow Locked On Kraken so you get all the latest episodes. You can find us at Davy Jones LR on all social media platforms or at DavyJonesLockerRoom.com, where we do print coverage of the Seattle Kraken. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Kraken ad-free, plus members-only Discord access, and more. For those of you on video, we send you over to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure this is one of your 2 daily listens. For Davy Jones Locker Room and Locked On Kraken, I'm Zane Begg.
And I'm Glenn Dreyfus.
And we'll see you tomorrow.